Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches, where we connect compassion with needs as we inspire growth with dignity. You'll find us in special places throughout the community. For those who remain hungry, we provide meals. For those who are challenged, we build wheelchair ramps. We comfort those who are ill, minister to those who are confined, and we remain an advocate for change and understanding on behalf of every element of our community. Connect and inspire. Encounter the Broome County Council of Churches.
Good morning, I'm Jeff Kellam, your host this week on Encounter. I'm the parish associate at the Union Presbyterian Church in the Union District of Endicott. I'm in kind of a quandary. I don't know whether to talk about the topics today or to talk about the guest. But if I tell you about the topics, you might guess the guest. And you could win a studio full of fabulous prizes. We could talk about local sports, Binghamton University sports. We could talk about the evolution of radio. We could talk about what it's like to be a part of a church that closes its doors forever. Or we could talk about meaningful retirement, how you keep active in your retirement years. Maybe you've guessed already that our host needs no introduction. His name is Roger Neel. Roger Neel is a longtime broadcaster at WNBF Radio, now kind of retired. And you know, I suppose you need no introduction, except if somebody's under 30, maybe they don't know what AM radio is.
And they might not. Yeah.
Or they may not know what FM radio is, for that matter.
Right.
Roger, when I was in a pre-retirement seminary, our denomination with the Board of Pensions would help us ease into retirement. They said, you know, most of you ministers in the room have a little business card that says what your title is, what you do. They said, when you retire, you don't want to have a business card that says, this is what I used to do. So what's on your business card today?
Well, you know, I think a lot of it is I've been able to stay involved in things that I truly love and enjoy, which is big. That's what I had planned to do when I decided to retire from full-time broadcasting work. And I've been very fortunate for that. The radio station that I was with for over 40 years, WNBF, has let me still stay involved. So I keep my hand in it, but not overwhelmed. And then being associated with Binghamton University, doing their men's basketball, traveling to road games again this year after 1 year of a break because of COVID. You know, I love college athletics. It changed my life going back to my earlier years.
Yeah.
So the combination has been great. One of the goals that I had, as you well know, in our business over the years, downsizing, you love the business, so you tend to really get wrapped up in things that you do. And over the years it evolved that I just kind of cut out a lot of the things that I enjoyed but just had no time for, like
right.
going to the gym, going for walks, working out, and spending more time with my family.
Right.
And so that got pushed to the side oftentimes because of the workload and just the fact that we were lucky enough to have jobs that we thoroughly enjoyed. It wasn't torture every day to go in. And I've been blessed because of that, because how many people do you talk to who absolutely hate what they do,
Yeah.
but they do it because they need the money or they've got 22 years to go before retirement, whatever. I was never in that case. Now, there were times when I was not happy with the amount of hours that it took to keep the job. That was not easy. But to be able to keep my hand in it, still keep a relationship with a great radio station and the university with Division I athletics, I've been very fortunate. So the downtime, my cousin has a saying, he said there's no real free time. It's as you pull one thing out, something else fills in that slot.
Oh,
it's
yes.
true. It's very true.
Yeah, people talk about being retired and the image is sitting in your recliner binging on game shows or something. But a meaningful retirement means, first of all, I think being able to say no, that we weren't able to do before.
Right.
And I think the other thing is to have a plan, and you obviously had a plan. And have you found time now to take the walks and go to the gym? And,
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, it's been great. And you know, it's one thing for you to have the plan. It's another thing if that plan involves outside things like the university, like WNBF Radio. And if that's not part of the plan for them, then your plan doesn't go anywhere. You know, so I've been very fortunate to have that work out in that capacity.
Right.
And I've been able to get back and take longer walks. And one of the goals was when I retired was just to try to get my health back to where I'd be happy with it. It wasn't bad, But again, the effects of long work hours and crazy hours of getting up at 4 in the morning and shoveling snow 3 times to get out in the morning, those types of things, they wear you down. So again, I never equated what I did with somebody who was out on the construction job. I get that. I did those jobs part-time when I was in school, so I know a little more about that than some people might think. But it wasn't physical work, but it was long, 12, 14 hours a day oftentimes. So I'm loving the fact that I got to reconnect with some of my family members, go to see my college play. You can't put a price tag on that.
Right.
So it's been great.
Right. It's no secret that we record the program.
Right.
And so here it is on a Thursday morning. And last night you were at Stony Brook and BU won the game.
Yes.
But then you have to make the bus trip back. But part of retirement is you're here at 9:30 as we record the program, but not going to the station and keeping your watch on the bus, hoping you're going to get back in time to open up the studio doors.
Exactly.
So a little bit more relaxed.
Yes. Less stress on the way back, because you're looking at your watch, but you're saying, so what? Instead of, can I be there? What's going to be the problem? And and the public does depend, and it does with TV as well, on school closings, delays, latest weather, all these types of things.
Yeah.
When you look at it sometimes, though, do you look back and you say, how crazy am I to want to fight the elements to get in, and I get there and tell everybody to stay home?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Exactly. So, and Binghamton University is doing pretty well this year.
Yes.
To talk about some local sports.
Absolutely. Another road win last night against Stony Brook, a longtime rival. A new coach has taken over. They've got several new players who've transferred in, and it's been exciting. And it's great to be able to not only be connected with college athletics, but also to be now part of what is going to be very successful. It's exciting and it's fun. And again, it's one of those things where you look at your watch and say, "Oh, I've got to get going to get ready to go to /work."
Yeah.
It's not so bad.
Right.
It's a lot more fun to win.
Yes, I'll bet it is, because I know that for many years the university team struggled.
Right.
And so you're announcing the games week after week, and not with pleasant outcomes always, but it's kind of turned a corner. You started as a football player in college,
yes.
And you played football in your hometown, I suppose, in high school.
High school, Slippery Rock, yes.
Yeah, so, that's right. You were from Slippery Rock.
People would go, "You went to college?" No, I went to high school there.
Yeah.
And I said, "You probably don't know anybody else that went to high school there."
Right. And then went to, let's see, the school is in this Amish farm town in western Pennsylvania, New Wilmington, Pennsylvania. Westminster College.
Yes.
Which we have in common.
We do.
Yep.
And people may not know this, but you were one of the founders of our campus radio station, so indirectly you're why I'm here. Because I was on the campus radio station. That was one of the reasons I chose to go there.
Yeah.
It's a private school, liberal arts school, great academics, and I went there because they had a radio and speech broadcasting program, but also to play sports, football and baseball.
Yeah.
Football more importantly for me than baseball, and I was so blessed to be touched by some of the greatest people I ever met.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Changed my life.
Right. We talked about Coach Harold Burry at the time, and these were championship teams in the NAIA, and then Division III now, I guess.
Division III now, in the President's Athletic Conference. Yeah. At the time, Westminster, when I went there, we were not members of a conference, but we were members of the NCAA and the NAIA.
Right.
And they stayed that way because there was competition, postseason, etc. If you didn't get a bid from one, you might get a bid from another. Well, my freshman year, we finished 6-2, and then my sophomore year, the NAIA developed, and this was before the NCAA did it, a playoff system. So the championship in football, for example, was decided on the field, not by a poll of writers or broadcasters or whatever.
Yeah.
So we ended up undefeated, ranked number 1 in the country in the NAIA, and we got a bowl bid to play in the Newt Rockne Bowl, which was an NCAA bowl. Or we had the chance to play in the first national playoffs with the NAIA, and our school chose to compete for a national championship, which didn't make the NCAA very happy because they'd offered a bid and our school turned it down. Anyhow, to make a long story short, they put us on probation. We went out, won the NAIA championship, came back the next year to defend, And the NCAA said, if you go on and play in other unsanctioned with us events, then we'll suspend you. And the school said, well, we'll just stay with the NAIA. Pulled out. That lasted for quite a while. The NAIA has gotten less of a footprint in the eastern part of the country. It's pretty much Midwest now, and fewer schools. So anyhow, when all that began to break up, then the school went NCAA Division II for a while, found that was just way too much travel. They'd fly out to Michigan for games and stuff. When the core is Western Pennsylvania, Eastern Ohio. So anyhow, long story short, now they're back in the NCAA and doing very well at Division III.
Yeah. And that kind of college experience in athletics and then the radio station really set you on a path of a lifelong time of 40 years here in Binghamton, and you had worked previously in other markets. Radio has changed a lot since those early days, and I don't know. When I was at the college radio station, it was closed circuit carrier current, which meant that we had little transmitters in the dorms, the women's dorms in the quadrangle. They wouldn't have known we had a radio station to begin with, so I think most of our listeners were listening outside the library doors, which is where the studio was. But through the years, radio, I remember working in Richmond with radio stations that had a news team of 8 people. You'd have 4-hour shifts. You had the air cadets that would come in on the weekends. High school kids sometimes, college kids running the board and announcing. That's how they got their start. And now, look at radio. It's kind of like the local paper, which doesn't even cover Binghamton University's teams. Right.
It's changed dramatically from big staffs to ones now that in many cases still are functionable, but not at the same power level, if you would, of what it was 20, 30 years ago. Economics, the big part of it, cutbacks, companies take a look at the bottom line. That's always been the way in broadcasting, but it's even more so now.
Yes.
And if there are positions that they can eliminate for whatever reason, unfortunately that has been the case. Even part-time hours are very difficult to come by now. So it's changed a lot. It's very difficult when I started to do sports broadcasting on a commercial basis back in Western Pennsylvania. I worked in Johnstown, PA, and there would be 3 stations on a Friday or Saturday that would cover high school football.
Yeah.
We'd have to get to a place 3 hours early to stake our spot out, because the schools will let you in, but they didn't guarantee where you'd sit. We did one in high school basketball where you had to get a ladder to climb up into this little loft. And so I remember how badly we felt, my broadcast partner and I, when we got that ladder, climbed up to the top and found somebody already there, right? Because they had camped out the spot an hour before we got there. So we would take turns and leave work like at 4 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game or 8 o'clock game. And then we would see the opposition climb the ladder with a big bag of equipment. As they got off the ladder, they go, "Oh, you're here. There's room for one." That was it. So they had to find somewhere else.
And I was thinking of that the equipment in those days wasn't a cell phone. You're talking about carrying, and I remember the early days of TV. I worked in Richmond at a television station. We did Saturday remotes at a car dealership. Had a movie, and we'd do the breaks. And we had to cart these huge cameras and pedestals from place to place.
Sure.
Another change, that's the technology that changes. And, I'm really sorry we're talking shop here. We should move on.
We enjoy it too much, that's why.
Yeah, that's right. Our guest today, as if you haven't recognized the voice already, is Roger Neel, a longtime broadcaster at WNBF Radio. And we've been talking a little bit about retirement, a little bit about sports. What many people don't realize is Roger was a Lutheran. And you were part of a small church in the village of Union. I still call it the Union District of Endicott, where I grew up. My church, Union Presbyterian Church, is at the corner of Liberty and Main, and the church you went to was just about 2 blocks down the street. My mother had wonderful memories of the pastor there from the 40s and 50s, whose name escapes me now.
Was it Pastor Tritchler? Was that
yes, that's right. That's right. So, but you were part of that church for quite a while.
30-some years, yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What was it like to close a church?
It was painful. It was very painful. Unfortunately, we know, now, especially augmented by COVID, the difficulties churches are having to get people to attend and, to continue on as it was 2-3 years ago. But there were issues before that. Our congregation was an aging congregation. It was difficult to attract young people to take roles, if you will, over some of the ones who had done, volunteer work for the church for 40 or more years. So you could see it happening slowly, but you never want to face that, But as the congregation aged, there were fewer and fewer members. Members who were very active before could not do some of the things that they did before. And so slowly but surely, the congregation kind of ages out. It was very painful. They took me in. I was originally a Presbyterian, which is Westminster College is associated with that, right? So I grew up in a Presbyterian congregation and home. And then when I came here, my girlfriend, now my wife, was a member of Holy Nativity, and that's how I got connected with that. They had a wonderful minister, Pastor Hamlin. But they kind of, I don't want to say adopted me, but the people were so kind.
Yeah.
That was one of the big reasons I stayed with that church as long as I did. They became like family.
Yeah.
They're wonderful people.
Yeah.
They treated me so well. It was very tough to see again, and we'd want to put on these big dinners that people could do in the past. Well, who's going to do it? You got 4 people now instead of 20 to take it. So all these things were happening.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. It's unfortunately kind of like the aging process. You see things that you could do 10 years ago, and now you have to realize it's very difficult, but you have to realize you can't do that anymore. And then as that continues, it goes from there. But it was difficult to close that. It was a lot of great memories. My wife and I got married in that church. As I said, wonderful friends.
Yeah.
And you miss out because no matter how you try, it's hard to keep in touch with those people once there's no central meeting place.
Yes, right. Yeah, we interviewed the pastor who was there, who was closing the church.
Mm-hmm. Pastor Abel, right?
Yeah. Yes, who was Presbyterian and was serving the Lutheran Church. We interviewed her. I took some pictures around the church, and just looking at the architecture, the stained glass, the building next door. I had gone to a Bible study there, an ecumenical Bible study in that big house next door. The Broome County Council of Churches had its Lenten services at Holy Nativity. And so I didn't feel a great connection with the church, but it's a common story these days as church populations are aging.
Yes.
We've just had a church close. The Ross Memorial Church in Binghamton is closed. So it's kind of like radio. It's kind of like the print industry with newspapers. It's church. It's good music. Oops. Change happens.
Right.
And adapting to change is difficult.
But yet, I would call them some of the more modern congregations, if you will, are flourishing.
Yeah.
Right? Younger people, they love the music.
Yeah.
My cousin's daughter and son-in-law are very involved in their church. They're musicians and singers, and they're fabulous.
Yeah.
They put on they've got, before the service, actually a 15-person band. It's good.
Right.
If you looked at this and it's online, you looked at it, you would say, okay, this has to be on a network. It's that good.
Yeah.
They're professional people, all somehow in this congregation. You go, how could you get that many talented people to be in one group at one time? And they have so many who are excellent at what they do. They can actually have, these people are involved this week, and then somebody else the next week, and it doesn't drop off. It's great. Those are flourishing. So it's just changed.
And you mentioned online, and that's the intersection of media and church. Is that the pandemic, one of the good things about the pandemic, which sounds like a strange thing, but maybe a better way to say it is, one of the things we've done through the pandemic is to move the church into a media age so that many churches now have video screens to provide visuals. Stained glass used to be the visual. Now the visual actually moves and shows the words to hymns and so on. We also have TV cameras to help us transmit the service out into the community so that many people who've been away from church, I'm thinking of the at-home members, the elderly members who can't get out to church, now can watch church maybe on a computer, a laptop, or their smart TV. So now the worship service is coming into your home.
Yes.
And I've never been afraid of the intersection of entertainment in positive ways. Certainly that band,
sure.
The TV kind of visuals of a worship experience are very different than they used to be. Mm-hmm. We don't want the entertainment to take over. We don't need all the preachers to be happy talk hosts. They are still worship leaders, and the central thrust of our worship is still God. But how that appeals to, people have different, I think it was First Hezekiah 19, different strokes for different folks. Or that may have been Sly and the Family Stone.
Okay, I said, I'm trying to think, where did that come from in Scripture?
Don't go look.
I like it.
Don't look it up. So, looking at your life mm-hmm. and the way you've moved from college athlete and getting your training in media to now moving into retirement, but holding on to your interest in sports, holding on to your interest in media, still finding a way to have a fruitful outlet in your retirement. It's very commendable.
I'm very fortunate. There's no question. I wake up every morning and realize that I've been blessed somehow to make the contacts that I've had. As I said, college athletics really changed my life. I grew up when I went to the schools in Slippery Rock. Slippery Rock State University was
sure
like our pro team heroes. We would have student teachers who played football, and one was a standout swimmer that we had as a student teacher. So we were connected, and consequently, my mom and dad worked on campus at the university. So I got to see a lot of college football games, basketball games where they would pack the field house. It would be Slippery Rock State when they would play Edinburgh, Clarion, Indiana. There would be lines out the door at 3 in the afternoon for an 8 o'clock game. It would totally sell out. And
right.
They could seat maybe 2,500, 3,000, so it wasn't tiny.
Yeah.
And so I grew up watching that and loved it. And then to be able to go and play for Dr. Harold Burry and Joe Fusco, which, by the way, were my two head coaches. How good were they? I don't brag about that I played ball. I bragged about who I played for. Dr. Harold Burry. The small colleges were never part of the Hall of Fame, College Football Hall of Fame, until the mid-90s.
Right.
They opened that up to college level as well. The first induction class ever from small colleges included Walter Payton, Buck Buchanan, Terry Bradshaw, and my head coach, Dr. Burry.
Oh, man.
That's
Isn't
class.
That great? Yes.
And then Joe Fusco, who was his top assistant, took over when he retired. He broke many of the records of Dr. Burry. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And then Harold Davis was an assistant coach and head basketball coach. He was selected to the Hall as a player. At one time on our staff at a small college, we had 3 future college football Hall of Fame coaches. I'll put that on with anybody. So all I say is I was lucky to be blessed really by being in contact with those people.
Right. Yeah, and Joe Fusco, as I remember, was the high school coach at the New Wilmington High School.
Yeah, he went to New Wilmington, Grove City, and then he came over to Westminster where he played, was a star. Yeah. So those people really, set the stage for life for me, because they would not let you just be ordinary.
Yeah.
They wanted you to be good, and they pushed you to do that.
Yeah. Did you, and this is kind of a personal, revealing question. Did you ever thank them? Did you ever write a note?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dr. Burry, I was so in awe of him, as many of us were, that it was hard to even talk to him.
Yeah.
And this may sound strange coming on a show like this, but he was a god to me.
Yeah.
He was so powerful and motivational that you'd talk for like 2 or 3 minutes and it would be like, I didn't know what to say, But I just saw Coach Fusco at a ceremony for a teammate of mine, Dar Huey, who had part of the field house named after him. I saw him at that ceremony and did thank him for what, and I said, you don't even realize how you've touched people, not just at the present, but 10, 15, 20 years later. And that's why I have such a respect for coaches, because what they do isn't always apparent in that 2 or 3 year span of playing.
Right.
But afterwards, what they do, they touch people and they motivate people. I was very lucky.
It's so important, I think, to thank our mentors,
Yes.
whether they're teachers or pastors or the next door neighbor who became a father figure perhaps, or a mother figure. It's important to thank them verbally, write a note, send an email, make a phone call,
Yes.
see them on the street and say, by the way, I need you to know that you were there for me at an important time in my life.
Absolutely.
And that, I think, encourages people
Oh.
to, the folks who are listening or watching right now can look back and think, who do I need to thank?
Yes.
You know?
And do it now.
Yeah, yeah.
Do it now.
Yep.
Actually, Coach Fusco, just as an aside, ESPN.com had a poll of the greatest college coaches in the history of the game. He was in the top 70.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow.
So, very good.
There was a music team one was pastor, one was a musician in Port Jervis, New York, Avery and Marsh. So a lot of Presbyterians know their contemporary music. And when I say contemporary, we're talking decades ago. But they had a song called Love Them Now, Don't Wait Till They've Gone Away. And it was about expressing your love and appreciation for people before it was too late.
Yes.
And so that may be a life lesson for us, and maybe the reason that we're doing this program together, to wind up at that point. So I thank you for your service to the community.
It's been great.
Because, man, I'll tell you, people depended on you as they got up in the morning to know whether to go to work in this kind of weather or whether to stay home, and whether the schools were closed. Whether the pet was going to be found, that kind of thing too.
Yes. Was it safe to put the pet outdoors for 5 minutes?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But I was lucky with WNBF because it's a full service station. We did those things.
Yeah.
I got involved with the Heart Association, CHOW, Council of Churches, and a lot of that involvement was through the radio station initially. I've tried to keep up with it in my semi-retirement, but were it not for the format that WNBF had, I probably wouldn't have had those contacts and have that chance.
Right.
Yeah.
Our guest on this morning's Encounter program has been Roger Neel, a retired WNBF personality, and thank you very much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
I was going to have you on years ago, but you were on the air live when we record the program.
It's a pleasure anytime. I love to talk with you.
So for the Broome County Council of Churches, I'm Jeff Kellam, hoping that in the coming week you'll be gentle with people and, of course, with yourself.